Hello, welcome to the biology aspect of the Mahi, also known as the Coryphena hipparus. So we're going to start with the external anatomy on these guys. So these guys are super fast swimmers. They have a streamlined body made for reducing drag. They have a modded dorsal that's made for stabilization that goes all the way from their head all the way to their tail. They also have a modded pelvic fin as well to help with that stabilization, moving fast through the water column, and along with the lunate tail. So these guys, just super fast swimmers, just like tuna. So moving on to the internal anatomy, these guys are carnivores. So they're fairly simple on the inside. It's more tubular. They have stomach, pyloric ceca, intestines, and anus. So their ratio of intestines to body length is going to be less than 1. They have red muscle for endurance swimming, so they kind of just cruise throughout the water column, constantly just moving. And then they have white muscle for speed burst when catching prey in schools and such like that. Moving on to the physiology of this fish, right off the bat, we could tell these colors super bright and vibrant. So we got blue, yellow, green, some iridescence on there. These guys exhibit posture colorization, so very ornamental, and they also exhibit a form of counter shading. They're going to be darker on the top of their body, while they're lighter on the bottom of their body, so they kind of helps them blend into the water column. And what's really interesting about these guys, their colors will change due to environmental cues and behavioral issues. So thermal regulation, for example, when they're regulating the temperature in their body, they will actually change colors. Along with communication such as mating and aggression. And whenever, stuff gets hectic in the water, they will actually change colors due to stress. Really interesting. So moving on to respiration, these guys exhibit ram ventilation. So they use countercurrent exchange, which helps them maintain concentration gradient for optimal gas exchange. They have a large surface area of gill filaments for increased gas exchange, along with thin gill membranes for more efficient diffusion. Really neat stuff. As mentioned earlier, these guys are carnivores. So as we see here, they have short and stubby few rakers. So they're mainly feeding on smaller fish like your herring, anchovy, sardine, smaller mackerel, and smaller tuna. Crustaceans are also a huge part of their diet, such as shrimp and crab, and squid are also found in their diet. As far as their reproduction, they happen to be heteroparous, so they breed year-round. They have separate sexes, and they're not hermaphroditic. Naturally, these guys are high in fecundity. They have external reproduction, and they have a form of sexual dimorphism as well. And this form of dimorphism is actually in head shape. So the males are going to have a more squared shape, and they're going to be known as bulls. And the females are going to have a more rounded head, and they're going to be known as cows. Very, very interesting. The eggs become more buoyant and float to the surface after reproduction, and they actually get no parental care. And they're pretty much on their own from, once they hatch. They have an average lifespan of about 2 years and a max from 4 to 5.
Alright, now we are going to go over the habitat portion of this presentation. These guys, they prefer different kinds of environments with age, sex, and size. Large male, generally, they are going to be the ones that are all pretty much out in the open ocean, whereas juveniles, smaller males, females, all of those generally are going to be more closer to the coast. These guys, they do have a small range of temperature that they can handle. Nothing crazy small, but it is only 25 to 29 degrees Celsius, and they really are much more comfortable in 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. And most of them, particularly females and smaller males, they really are attracted to structure. So anything from like sargassum to large branches to artificial structures. There's even cases of them getting really attracted to just large boats. All of that is stuff that they're going to like. These guys, they're pretty much everywhere. Subtropical, tropical. They'll stretch as far north as like Massachusetts down to all the way down to the tip of South Africa. They're in the Pacific, the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, just everywhere. But for the sake of the fishery portion of the presentation, we are going to focus mainly just right here on that Atlantic population. They are insanely migratory. They travel a lot, as Riley mentioned earlier. They just don't really stop swimming a whole lot. And as they're smaller, they will school. They've been observed to school up to about 50 fish, so don't go much bigger than that. And as they age, they become much more solitary. Now, for the Atlantic population, these guys, again, all over the Atlantic, just within that latitude-longitude range, they are going to be in Atlantic, Gulf, Caribbean. They go, as I mentioned, as far north as Massachusetts, then they'll go all the way down to like Brazil. And they really are attracted to the sargassum sea because, like I said earlier, they do love structure. They do love coverage. That's protection for any kind of any predator coming from above, and it means there's going to be an ample source of prey in that area. These guys, they generally like to be in more shallower water. 40% of the time, they'll be in less than a meter away from the surface. But they will, at nighttime, they'll go down to usually no deeper than 85 meters, so there have been cases of them going down farther. They usually are up at the surface because they are an active predator. During the daytime, all their prey's up there, so that's where they are because that's where their food source is going to be. And interestingly, it's much more light-based than just time of day based. So during events like a full moon, they have been observed to still be much closer to the surface than they would be on a new moon kind of night.
So this is our fisheries portion of our presentation, and like previously mentioned, we will be focusing just on the South Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico stocks. Now, both of these stocks share very similar regulations, in that both have a 10 bag limit and a 54 vessel limit. There's a minimum size for both recreational and commercial of 20 inches in fork length, and with commercial, these fish are usually caught with long lines and hook and lines. Now, both of these stocks are currently not being overfished, and fishing season is open year-round for both recreational and commercial. Now, starting with the South Atlantic stock catch history, we see that pre-regulation, both of the commercial and recreational stocks have large peaks where large amounts of catch are coming in, but as the stocks are continually overfished, agencies pick up on this and regulations are clearly shown to be implemented as the catch coming in decreases in an attempt to recover the stock and save the population. Again, this is shown in the Gulf of Mexico stock, where there are large peaks at pre-regulations, and as the stock is a little overfished, regulations start to be implemented, and the catch goes very low, down to usually around the 100,000 mark, in an attempt to let the stock recover and repopulate. Now, these are our resources.